All right. Hey, welcome to another episode of Maps Are Dead. I'm Mike D. Today's conversation is with someone who's a part of my own team, Destry Wardle. Destry's a therapist, a coach, and my chief of staff at the Dauphinee group. She spent years helping people navigate like that crazy intersection of life, work, and identity, and she does it with both a clinical lens and a coach's curiosity. She's been in the room for some big transitions, both hers and other people's, and she has a unique take on what it means to keep moving forward when the maps run out. Des, thanks for joining me. And I guess leading off with a big question, when you think about where you are now, what's a big moment that shifted directions for you to like where you're at today as a professional woman?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And it's such an honor to be a guest on your show. I've really enjoyed listening to the ones that you have done. You've talked to a few of my good friends and have
Yes, thank
had,
you for the introductions.
yeah, they've just had, it's been fun to hear from them, how this conversation has shifted. So I came into it really excited to be able to be in the hot seat this time. And I love that question. I was thinking about it last night some. And it reminded me to a phone call that I had with you in the Walmart parking lot in Ashland, Ohio, where Dana had introduced us
Mhm.
as me possibly being your assistant at the
Yeah,
time. I had
yep,
just
way
turned
back in the day.
50. Yeah. And I'm like three and a half years ago, something like that now. So previously, I guess up until that point, just to give a little bit of background, I have my master's in clinical counseling and had operated as a clinical counselor in various different spaces for a lot of years. When Aaron and my husband and I made a move out to Colorado, I decided to kind of put that license on the back burner and wanted to step more into a space of being in the same rhythm as my kids. And
Mhm.
so I chose to become a para educator at the time, which was just, you know, fancy term for teacher's aide.
Teacher's aide, but a para educator. Yes.
A para educator. I spent time cutting out lamination things, which was so fun. That was like an addicting experience, and sharpening pencils. And Aaron would always joke with me that you went from clinical counseling to sharpening pencils. Okay. But yeah, there were a lot of reasons for that, which might play out in our conversation
Hmm.
today. But one of the big things is just feeling overwhelmed with being a mom and all that that was requiring of me, and wanting to just have a space where I could really focus most of my emotional and physical energy on that. And then, yeah, I needed to have something, a paycheck. I
Yeah.
needed to have something to do outside of the home. So, came into COVID kind of hit, and that, definitely shifted my role
Hmm.
um, and kind of put on the front burner of this, do I take this as an opportunity to step back into counseling? And I had kind of been doing a little bit of that work all along in conjunction with being the paraeducator. Um, but thought, well, maybe I need to like step into that more full time. Um, and Aaron was definitely encouraging me to do it because I could make a lot more money being a counselor than I was
Right.
making being a paraeducator. So, definitely wanting to do that. But as I sat with that, I just felt like, I don't know, like I'm not sure that that fits me anymore. I don't know what I want. And then in comes Dana, who's a mutual friend of ours,
Yeah.
and she had kind of been out of my life for many years. We went to college together, definitely went separate ways. And then she came back in to my life, and we started having conversations. She started introducing me to the strengths language and kind of coaching me through, this transition period. Um,
Yeah.
I was also about to turn 50 and kind of having a moment of like, okay, what do I want to do? Like for this next, like it felt like a big marker to make kind of a different decision,
Hmm.
and not just to go with what felt comfortable, but to go with what felt right, what I really wanted to be about. And so she started introducing me to the strengths and having those conversations, and then through that, I got connected to you. I started watching your Instagram posts and was like, man, this guy is traveling all over the
Crazy.
world, having really cool conversations. I loved the questions that you were posing that were much more forward moving questions than they were about unpacking trauma. Um, and something in me just kind of was like, what if I did that? What if I could like pivot and become more of, the person that takes you into the next, takes you to where you want to go instead of like
Right.
trying to get back to a healthy baseline and not be acting out of old things.
Yeah.
So that was the and it started, the opportunity that came across my plate was you had put out, I'm looking for an assistant.
Yep.
And I was like, which, it's funny when I look back at that if it would have been like, I'm looking for a chief of staff, there's no way I would have stepped into that, because
Sure.
that would have felt like too big of a step for me.
At the time.
But
Right.
because of who I am, I think that assistant piece, I felt like maybe I could do that. I still came into the interview like, listen, I have no technical skills. I don't know what kind of assistant you're looking
I'm like,
for. I can have a
yeah.
good conversation.
I hadn't had one in a couple of years, and so I was like, business was starting to pick up. And I'm like, okay, I might need some help. And honestly, it was. I mostly thought, well, this woman can probably handle my crazy. She does have a licensure in therapy, so
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that was my first thought. But I was like, yeah, I'm glad you stepped into that in that way. I want to ask about that though, but I just realized something. I didn't write up your themes. Destry, tell me your top 5 so I put them on the board.
Yeah, sure. The first is connectedness.
Okay.
2 is communication.
Okay.
3 is arranger.
Okay.
4 is analytical.
Okay.
And 5 is harmony.
All right. Just because I like to have them on the back of the board behind me as we're talking, so I know how to pull them out.
Yeah.
Destry, you said that, so 50 is approaching, and you said in that moment, it feels like a big shift. Had you ever felt that before?
Yes.
And,
Back
well, because I
when
want to know, let me a compound question.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt it before? And how did this feel different or similar to previous? How is it different than the times you faced that before?
Yeah, okay. So a memory that comes back to me is when I had graduated from my master's program. I was working in community mental health, definitely disillusioned by the brokenness of that system, wondering if I just wasted the last 3 years of my life getting a counseling degree. Um, and I was invited to step into this team of people that were working with a nonprofit called Healing Care Ministries, which my father-in-law started. And he asked me to join this team that was going to be doing like 8-day retreats with individuals and couples, unpacking, trauma, bringing people through and who were in like pastoral ministry and out on the mission field and all
Hmm.
that. That team of people, I was the youngest. I think I was 33 at the time when he invited me to join that. And everybody was significantly older than me, had their doctorates, definitely
Yeah.
way more qualified in my eyes. So when he asked me to be a part of it, I remember feeling like there is no way that they're all just going to think I'm here because Terry's my
Sure.
father-in-law and, nepotism at its greatest. And that I already lived with an imposter syndrome, kind of
Hmm.
had that sense of um wanting to fly below the radar. That was kind of my self-protective way
Sure.
of being. And so I liked things that were small and that I could kind of hide in. And this felt like I was being called out behind the curtain. And, I remember really wrestling through that. I leaned hard into his belief of me, as well as the relational, the relationships I had in my life that just
Yeah.
knew me and continued to say, like, you've got what it takes to do this. Step into this and step into it with, with authority. And that I've been actually doing that for like the last 20 years, but it was scary, and I definitely felt like I had to navigate the waters of, um do I belong here? Fast forward, I did that, and I had my part. I kind of had a very specific part on that team. I had a very specific piece that I would teach. I got really comfortable, and I grew. My skills grew exceptionally under the encouragement and the leadership of that team. I got to do things that, I had no business doing or speaking into, other than, I was just given a really sweet position. And I got to see, I felt like it was a season where I started to get to grow into my strengths, kind of like that
Mm.
experience of like a kid's body grows faster than their brain does. And
Yeah.
so I felt like I was in that place, and it grew some belief in myself, some like, okay, I did this. So fast forward, when, I stepped into the coaching space and onto the TDG team, um, I felt a similar kind of, even though I had had lots of counseling experience, I felt like I don't know the corporate world. I don't know business.
Sure.
Who am I to sit across the screen or the table from a professional athlete or a, CEO? Like, I just felt like I am a fish out of water here. And I remember going back to that same space of like, remember when you felt like this wasn't where you belong and you weren't good at this, but you stepped anyway. You leaned into the belief of the people around you that said, you have what it takes, you're enough, you can do this, which is, you are the voice in my head of that. Um, I don't I don't experience you as somebody who's likes to blow smoke,
No.
up people's butt, if I could say
No, not so
that.
much. Yeah, exactly.
Um, you aren't a person that is, just out there to tell everybody what they want to hear. And so I remember when you, really spoke some truth into me and kind of exposed. It was after that retreat that we had gone on with
Yeah.
Johan and some other people that were there. Um, I remember being like, okay, can I trust what this guy is saying? And, and others. I had other
Yeah.
people in my life like Dana and Aaron and, other significant people that I really respected saying, you can do this.
Yeah.
So I took that leap of
Yeah.
stepping out of the curtain, behind the curtain.
But one thing I want to lean into though is because you're describing, and we've talked a little bit about this before, you're 50, the ability to let yourself be discontent.
Mm,
That's what I'm wondering about is like, because I think about people listening to this.
yeah,
It's one thing to feel discontent if people try to fix themselves instead of the situation. People will say, I'm being ungrateful.
yeah.
I'm in the job I dreamed of. And how can I possibly be in the middle of, how can I possibly be miserable in something that I really, really sought after? And so they start to shove this idea of discontent, or they will ignore it, or medicate it, or numb it. You're saying you're 50. You could you could make more money as a therapist if that was the only issue. Do something else, seeing clients. But instead, you gave yourself permission to say, I want more than that.
Mhm.
Now, TDG was a little beyond what you thought. But where does the trust come of asking yourself the question of, I'm okay being discontent. It's actually a good thing I should listen to, not something I should make go away.
Yeah. Yeah. So that discontent word is an interesting word for me because I see myself as a very contented person. I can be content in
Mhm,
a little and a lot. I'm content sharpening pencils. I'm content sitting, having a engaging conversation with a really amazing person. So and I actually desire I pride myself in content, like I used to
mhm,
see it as like a badge of like Destry can be content in any situation and that's what makes her so amazing. It was, allowing myself to step into um I wanna say it rather than it being discontent, I think it was, like, stirring the waters of my life, knowing that it was gonna make me better. It was gonna provide opportunities for growth, um, and I really, like, sat with, like, well, what at the end of my life, do I wanna look back and see that I just played it safe all the time? Again, using that
sure,
analogy of, like, I just flew below the radar, and I loved my life. There wasn't anything that
right.
I liked going to the school. I liked being around the kids. I liked knowing exactly what I was supposed to do, and I could leave that job at the end of the day and not think about it at all. Um, Stepping into the coaching, counseling space puts me in the way of like, can I, I'm questioning myself. Was I
Mhm,
impactful? Was I effective? Did I make a difference? That kind of put me, I had to start to be willing to engage those kinds of feelings that being at the school didn't give me. The school was like, the expectations were really clear. I could check a
yeah,
box. I did it. I didn't do it.
yeah.
Coaching and counseling is much more ambiguous and leaves lots of room for interpretation. So for me, it was like, I want my kids to see somebody who never stopped growing, didn't check out of life and just make life a big playground.
Yeah,
I think my connectedness,
I was gonna
being my
ask.
number one,
Yeah,
I I wanna I wanna be on a mission of a sort. I wanna have a lot of purpose in my life. I wanna know
yeah.
that what I'm doing matters, and I knew I had to step into something bigger if I was gonna do that.
Well, because I was wondering, it's on some level, the causal is for connectedness, cause is required, right?
Yeah,
There has to be a why attached. And
yeah,
connectedness believes in the unseen. For people with connectedness, to step into the unknown is to step into space that's occupied by something. They just want to discover it.
yeah,
And so connectedness sees the patterns. They believe in cause, they believe in diversity, they believe in the connection between things as real as the things themselves. What is fascinating, though, in your profile is the willingness to step into the ambiguity of cause mixed with the drive for rational, grounded thought with analytical.
mm,
The part of your brain that demands you be reasonable and rational, while the other part of you screaming, but if that doesn't connect to meaning beyond myself, it doesn't have value.
yeah, yeah. Um, you know what I was thinking about that, and you tell me if this is what
Go for it.
this
Just
is
go
where
where it
I
goes.
think
Yep,
my
just go where it goes.
analytical is showing up.
That's fine.
So immediately when I kind of said yes to this coaching
Yeah,
space and to joining TDG, I immediately started inundating myself with every kind of leadership podcast
sure.
I could here, and here's something like the reality was in the counseling space, I was working with leaders who were hitting a crisis of really bad leadership, whether they were the victim of it or the perpetrator of it, they were crumbling as leaders. And
Yeah.
I was hearing all kinds of those stories of failed leadership. And my mind is like, well, how do we make healthy leadership? Like if I want to not just mend the wounds of a bad leader, how do I help shape a good leader? And so I really started listening to people like Simon Sinek, Adam Grant, Um, the finding Mike Gervais, I think, Finding Mastery guy, and I loved the research. You know, they throw in a lot of statistics and research on healthy culture within the work setting and good leadership. And I think I started to connect like, oh, like, and you know, you always say it, you know, the role of the manager is what is the most influential in
Yeah.
the American,
Any
you
team.
know, the home, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're
Any
under
team.
bad management, things are not going well at home because all the stress is coming out there. So I loved that connected. Like if I can make a healthy leader, I could be a part of making healthy churches,
Hmm.
making healthy teams, making healthy homes.
Yeah.
It
The
it's
ripple effects are real for connectedness. They see the world in ripple effects. And
yeah,
so seeing that pattern is really important.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just I think you provided a structure, a framework that I could step into, which that's another important, like, I don't know that I could walk into a blank canvas and be like, well, this is how I do it. I felt like I was walking into a really well built home that needed some furniture rearranging, you know, or some
It probably
decor.
needs a whole lot more than that, but I appreciate the I appreciate the perception. That's at least a good thing.
Yeah,
But Des, what do you most people have a perception of the helpers in their life having done or answered questions they're asking or gone ahead and they've got it together and that's how they're able to help. But you and I both know that as what I call the helping profession, coaching, therapy, things like that, you exist in a space of being utterly imperfect and struggling to answer some of the questions that you're asking your clients. How
yeah,
do you live in that tension?
yeah. I have a high value for authenticity. I think that um relatability is one of the best tools that you can have when sitting with a person that, you know, there isn't anything, you know, I might not have gone through exactly what the person on the screen or whoever I'm talking to has gone through, but there is always a piece of me that can either relate or learn from that experience. I I think that's why I love conversation. I love communication because I think there's always something for both parties to gain through a really, really good dynamic conversation that's committed to authenticity and honesty. Um, so, I mean, I don't think there's a day that goes by that I'm not having a conversation. And at the end of the day, I'm not thinking back on how is that playing out in my life?
Yeah.
Where is that showing up? Um, and I think I'm a collector of stories. Like I've sat and listened to incredible stories. I tell, you know, I want to give credit to all the broken marriages that I have walked with to making my marriage what I think is a really
Mm,
amazing, healthy, great marriage. That is a result of all the stories and
yeah.
walking through people through really difficult, hard moments in marriage. I'm a recipient of that. That's an important part of what I want to do. I want
Yeah.
to put myself in places that I'm not just a giver, but I'm a taker
Yeah.
from that interaction.
Yeah. There's something about experiencing, and I always say, I had somebody pay me a nice compliment. They said, Mike, you coach yourself really well. And I was like, that's because I've had the honor of having people let me coach them. Like,
Yeah.
and sitting in and studying a coach's job is to create differentiation and provide language when creating vision and action.
Yeah.
And this ability to kind of call that out and see that, well, you get really good at spotting it out externally. And then I think the great coaches learn to coach themselves of like, okay, how do I practice those frameworks in my own life? And so,
Yeah.
like you said, the stories of marriage help produce great marriage, which is why I think we should all be in some kind of form of this, of helping others. There's a
Yeah.
reason why they say the best way to learn it is to teach it sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah.
because the act of applying it to our own lives by making it understandable to someone else I
For
really
sure.
believe is key in some
Yeah.
of that. When you so now you sit in a variety of spaces, right?
Hmm.
You sit with clients, but you're also kind of like the center spoke for our team. And we're a
Hmm.
team of about 10 people or so scattered across 7 different countries around the world.
Yeah.
So one, just getting team meetings in general is pretty hard and, all the schedules. So I really appreciate that time. When you think about coaches, having now spent years taking care of coaches while simultaneously being one, when you think about what makes them great, when you've seen good coaches, what is it that stands out to you that you're like, man, I feel like a great coach, the coaches that we work with or get to say, man, they bring this to the table. There's something about what they can do. And they could be coaches. We have good friends who are coaches outside of the company
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. And so when you think about coaches and their ability to navigate, what is it you see that separates the good coaches or the great coaches from those who are kind of just running through a script?
Yeah. So the coaches that I think bring the most value, it's not really the information that they have, or the wisdom. They're not they're not bringing, yeah, they're not bringing information to be the vehicle of transformation. I think the best coaches are excellent noticers. They
Mhm.
notice things. They listen really, really well. They ask really deep questions. So they don't just ask the surface question. They are able, in counseling we learned the skill of active listening, which is a deeper form of listening. It's listening for what's underneath the
Mhm.
communication, right? Listening by watching body language, by watching, paying attention to tone of voice. I think coaches that know how to do that really, really well, um, are the best kinds of coaches. And they are, through their questions and through their noticing, they're able to lead people to a deeper awareness of themselves, to a deeper awareness of, what are the things that they want and what are the fears that are getting in the way of them pursuing those things.
Yeah.
The other piece that I think is coaches, and I love this. I think all of our coaches do this in spades. I'm biased, but whatever. They really they know how to be attuned to a
Mm.
person. They show up and so that people feel not just heard, but they feel felt.
Yeah.
They know when to be quiet and to let that pause just sit and let it be like, I'm with you. You're not alone in this. I believe in you, that there's a
Yeah.
place that they hold of belief and hope when sometimes our clients are showing up in like, man, I've been trying this and I still blew it. I
Yeah.
still I still, did that thing that I'm trying not to do. And so to hold that, in counseling, we call it the unconditional positive regard, but that unconditional belief in space, that, you know what, I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna be honest with you. That I think that's the other piece is rarely do we have people in our life that are willing to give really good, honest feedback in the posture of care, not the posture of, uh being harsh and harmful, but the posture of like, I'm willing for you to get mad at me or frustrated with me in this space because I really think you need to hear this because I know it's going to serve something more important for you.
Yeah. To have people be, I think our team is exceptional at the asking the question below the question.
Yeah.
One of the things that I can find myself guilty with having activator is that it's easy when someone says, man, I'm having a really difficult conversation. I'm having a really difficult time having this conversation with my direct report, or I'm having a difficult time having this conversation with my spouse or my
Yeah.
business partner. And it gets really easy to go, okay, well, based on their themes, I can see why they don't want to communicate. They're thinking themes. These are some ways. Take notes and write notes before you communicate with them, before the one-on-one, you'll feel better. Now, guess what? I just help them use Clifton Strengths to navigate the problem of communicating to their direct report or their spouse.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't talk at all about why it's a struggle.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk at all about if it's a struggle having this conversation with your direct report, and the core issue is you feel insecure because you think this person because you used to be peers and you've been promoted and now you're the boss. And so it's causing out your insecurity and your fears. If it's showing up with the direct report, where else in your life is it showing up? What else are you avoiding? And we rob them of the opportunity
Yeah.
to not pull the leaves off the weed, but to
Yeah.
get the weed from the root. And I find that the best coaches, that's what I love about when we think about who we bring into the team, they have to be able to go beyond the transactional.
Yeah.
A great
Exactly.
coach has to go in and say, your Clifton Strengths themes will tell you what tools in your head your brain deploys to achieve a goal, but it
Mm-hmm.
won't tell you why you picked some and left others on the floor,
Yeah. Yeah.
why you picked up certain tools and not. And I think that requires that deeper level of being able to do that. And also requires, like you said, attunement and sitting with it, right? I think we both have read that book, Scattered Minds,
Yeah.
that we've
Yeah.
talked about the other day. You brought it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the experiment of what actual attunement was. We're watching babies react to their mothers
Yeah.
by video, being smiley and happy, and the baby's getting smiley and happy. And
Yeah.
everybody thinks it's the smiley, happy mom face. But then when they played the baby, just a video of the smiley, happy mom, the baby would cry because it wasn't the smiley, happy mom. It was the baby recognizing that their
Mhm.
actions were creating the smiley, happy mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that attunement piece. And so we
Yeah.
think it's about being able to be positive and being shiny, and coaches will put on a voice and sound when it's just interesting to think about that study, if that's true for humans, our need to feel like someone else resonated and it's being reflected in their face. It's being
Yeah.
reflected in their posture and in who they're showing up to be. Not to go to you to even to counseling, but when you think about these pieces, and I think about your story in a multiverse world, good comic books and Marvel and all that. In a multiverse world, right, there's many paths that lead to different directions. But if you look back and you're like, you know what, this is a choice I made. If I hadn't made this choice, I think my life would be different, truly.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, and it would probably be a great life and you would be amazing. But this is a choice that I made that may not have been popular. It may not even be understood by everybody. But I think I would have ended up somewhere different had I not made this choice.
Yeah. So, oh man, I feel like I have many of those. I guess the one that, feels kind of cliche to name this one, but truly I feel like it's the most powerful one. Is marrying Aaron. I think I met Aaron in college. I went into college late in life. I had no intention of going back to school, and really, I was working at a ranch for troubled youth at the time, and the director of that program was like, you need to go back to school and be a counselor. Like, this is stop hiding here. It's because that's what I was really good at. I was leading, expeditions and all kinds of different, you and I have been in that world
Yeah,
before.
we know. Yeah, we
You
played
get it.
camp counselor.
And I was like, this is great. I get to go backpacking and rock climbing and river rafting. I found my place.
This
And
is
he was
life.
like,
This is my calling.
yeah. And he was like, no, you need to go back to school. I was like, I hate school. I suck at school. I don't want to do that. Long story short, he eventually gets me to go to school. I find myself at this small little school up in Northern California. I was like, I want to get in, get my degree, and get out of here. It was a Christian college. It was all, ring by spring or your money back. I was like, every guy here is going to be poor. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to marry any of them.
Yeah.
I needed a rich, successful husband to fund my
Adventures.
expeditions,
Yeah. The adventures.
my play
And you
plan.
clearly found one. That's what you found. I've met your husband. I mean, he's clearly the sugar daddy type and loves to
Yeah,
no, he hates
yeah.
hiking. He hates going out.
So, yeah, when I met Aaron, he definitely was not on the path of rich and successful. But he had incredible character, and I just knew that this was the guy that was going to foster and bring out the best in me. That he wasn't going to let me hide and fly below the radar. He was going to be somebody that was like, nope, I see you. I am going to make sure that you flourish and you don't play it safe. And I can remember several poignant moments in our relationship leading up to marriage where I just was really wrestling on teetering on the edge of like, I know that this is going to be so uncomfortable if I say yes and go this direction in my life. Or do I want to just like stick with my safe plan? And I leaned into the belief of some people that I really respected and admired the life that they had built for themselves. And
Yeah.
I took a risk and I married Aaron, and immediately he asked me to move with him to Ohio, which I didn't even know where it was on the map at the time. I was a SoCal girl. I was like,
Somewhere in the middle.
so there are skid marks across Highway 70, leading to Ohio. I did that very unwillingly, um, physically, but deep down in my core, I knew that this was going to be a adventure, and it was going to lead me on a path that was going to really be meaningful. And it has. I mean, we've been through a lot of ups and downs together. It hasn't been easy, but
Yeah.
I think where I am now, I look back on that and I am so grateful that I had the right people around me to tell me,
Yeah.
step in, like don't let this pass you by. And I'm super grateful that, I had the courage, the wisdom, whatever, was given to me in that
Yeah.
moment to say yes to that.
When you think of your Clifton Strengths themes, because we talk a lot about Clifton Strengths internally, obviously we use it. Some of your themes are really useful for your relationship, communication, connectedness, those things like that. When you think about themes, because I want us to have this conversation, because I think everybody does, some themes make it really difficult in a relationship. And when you think about core relationships, you're like, I know this is in me, but this is a theme I really have to navigate because it works really well on the inside. But when it comes out and I have to, this part of my brain has to interact with them, it requires some extra effort. Because I think that's part of what we do, right? Our themes, they're all in our heads, and some work really well in shaping us, but then we point them out, they don't work as well. Like it's more difficult and like
Yeah.
people bump into it. Of your themes, where are spaces that you're like, I'm having to learn how to navigate this part of my Clifton Strengths when it comes to a relationship? Because it
Yeah.
makes sense in my head, but it doesn't always land well,
Yeah.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
The two that stand harmony is one that when I saw that in my top 5, I was like, what the heck? I am a confronter. I am not a peacekeeper.
Yeah.
And that was one of the ones that I had kind of brought up to Dana. And I think I was navigating some marital stuff at the time where I was like, harmony is not my thing. And she said something that was really, she's like, oh, well, harmony, it's not about keeping peace, it's needing peace, And so you might not be the peacekeeper, but you might be the peacemaker, which means you will blow things up in order for it to get back
Yeah.
to peace, right? And so that really resonated with me because what I notice relationally, if there is a rupture of some sort, it is very hard. Like I cannot live with the elephant in the room. It has to be, like
Yeah.
it has to be exposed. And I have had to work hard at knowing timing and strategy when it comes to that because I don't know what it is that like will create a sense of urgency, or I can make something bigger than it really is. So I've had to navigate that relationally. Living in that space of how do I not just blow things up so there's shrapnel, everywhere, but how do I go in, grounded in my own peace, not needing somebody else to do something in order for me to feel it, to
Yeah.
be at peace. That has been a growing place for me. I think the other one that comes to me is my analytical. Um, I am that person, like, if you come and tell me something, I'm like, well, okay, but tell me exactly what tell me that conversation
Who
exactly. What
says?
did you say? What I'm like deconstructing
Yep.
everything. I want to know all the extraneous details that are at play. um, that can be really disruptive
Yeah.
in the stage of a conversation that's looking for connection. I think it plays a really important part at some place in the conversation, but if that comes in really quickly, then immediately people are like, "I hate you and I don't want to talk to you and stay away from me." We are just like the buzzkill. Um, you know, yeah, Aaron would call me, like, the dream buster, like, he would come in, he's
I call
ideation.
you I call it the no fun patrol.
Yes.
That is the no fun
Yeah,
patrol.
I'm
Take those
like,
balloons out of the sky, your
practical,
little BB gun.
practical.
Ting, ting, ting.
Yeah, and even
Yeah.
even in my own, I've worked this year at kind of creating vision for my own life, and it has been so extremely hard, and I think it's that
Mhm.
analytical part of me that's like, "But this is not practical," like, how do
Yeah.
I push myself into, like, that dream, what might be possible place when I'm looking at all the evidence around me, like,
Yeah.
why waste my time on this dream that has a very low percentage of happening? So I think I'm still a work in progress in that for sure.
Sure. I think we are. But I think what's interesting to me as I listen to you tell that story is that, but if I think about the two major examples, 50 coming to work for me, being 20, go back 20 years working with, healing care, all those years back, is that the thing that overrides the irrational is the most trusted voice that you're like, I'm going to borrow their belief until I can get my own.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And so it would be interesting for people who have that, who kind of have that mix for you, which is the spiritual, the big picture, the connectedness, the creative, and the analytical harmony. It's the cult. It's interesting to think that when it comes to navigating, it requires the cultivation of community that is so trusted, it'll become a source of truth when the data is not available.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely. And I think, I've been blessed and I think I've been blessed and I've been intentional
Hmm.
about building that into my life. I literally sit in awe of the kinds of people that I have access to. That I get to sit and have conversations with. I'm like, how did I get so lucky here,
Yeah.
and continue that, I mean, that to me is a life well lived when you are rubbing shoulders and having
Yeah.
conversations with people that are um changing the world, and they're not too busy to reach their hand back to you and say, I want you
Yeah.
to do this with me.
When you think about that, though, man, community is so hard to come by these days.
Mhm.
You must talk to people a lot who don't have those trusted voices around them.
Yeah.
Like, are you finding any patterns and things where you're like, yeah, the lack of community is having impact, or people maybe they're navigating well that you're going, well, here's how they're filling that gap.
Yeah, for sure. I think one is the expectation of it being easy. Um,
Mm,
you know, I I think we live in a culture that says we can have it all. And so, we can have the really busy life and we can be jumping all over the place and doing all the things and have really close connected relationships. And or it's, well, gosh, if you're not on my road, then I don't have access to you. And we kind of limit our ability to think like, oh, wait, I can actually take a different road. I can
right.
actually be intentional and make space. So, I think there's a lack of resourcefulness and creativity when it comes to community. We have this, many people I see kind of have this belief that it should be just baked into the rhythm of their life. You know, I should
Yeah.
get this from my church. I should get this from my job. I should get this from my family. You know, we have these like so-called specific places, and if it doesn't come there, then we're like, I don't have it, you know?
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that opened up for me, which I hate talking on the phone. I'm not a big phone conversationalist. The thing that the silver lining that COVID gave me were two things. One, it gave me the app Marco Polo, which
Marco Polo.
is where I get to see people's faces while they're talking to me. I feel way more connected in that kind of exchange than, you know, planning a 10-minute phone call, you know, with
Yeah.
somebody. Um, that maybe that's my connectedness, my
It's your
community.
connectedness, because the communication side of me built the entire company for 20 years just doing phone. And the community, I have communication. I'm like, oh, it's great. I can do it without. Actually, in fact, I have clients who are better without,
Yeah,
who are better off video. But
right.
connectedness, the seeing it gives you more input.
100%. Like I want to be, if I can't be physically in the room with somebody, I want to see their face on the screen.
Yeah.
And I would have never have said that. I would have been like, heck no, I don't want to do Zoom. I don't want to do that. But COVID forced that. And all of a sudden I realized, oh, wait, like this isn't that bad. And literally my closest friends are, they don't live here. They're all over the world, you know? I have built some really good, close relationships here. And that has it has meant making time for it, being intentional, asking for it, not waiting to be
Yeah.
asked, which is another piece. I think people, who, if we're living from a really insecure place or we're living from like a disempowered place, we're waiting to be invited into something instead of going out and getting what it is we want. You know, one of my closest friends here, I can remember seeing her and something I just watched and I was like, I really like the way this woman moves in the world. I like, you know, I liked what I witnessed from afar and I was like, I want her to be my friend. So
Yeah.
you know, in a very kid-like way, courted that relationship to build community, but it takes risk. And
Yeah.
if we're afraid of rejection, if we're afraid of a lack of reciprocity, we will play small in that and we will, you know, hesitate or bring a lot of like ambiguity to the, you know, opportunity. Um, so I kind of try to coach people, if this is what you want, what are the steps that you need to take, that you can take, that you have every ability to take to begin to build that
Yeah.
with
One
intention.
one of the things that's interesting for me is, and this is a potentially hot take, I feel like part of the death of community is that we entered decades where people decided their immediate family was their community
Hmm.
and those relationships. And that was the only thing. And so when I hear you say that people are surprised it requires effort, yeah, because people will shrink their world to, yeah, anything beyond my nuclear family and my child's schedule and my spouse's schedule and my work schedule. Yeah, that's too much. It's okay. I have community. Here's what I care about. My really hot take is we have a drought of purpose in this world, especially in America,
Yeah.
because people think their families are their purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm saying purpose is about connecting your life to someone else's life. And basically what lives in your house, it doesn't count. It's
Yeah.
basically it's you're treating you, which is interesting because as I watch people whose kids now left the house and
Yeah.
they're alone, they're going, okay, we're ready for community now. We're ready
Yeah.
for community. Or I had someone last week say, yeah, we don't know how to make friends because we don't have kids that we have to go to the soccer field with,
Right.
that we talk to their parents. We're
Yeah.
not going and standing at the sidelines of the park birthday party and making friends. And suddenly removing that stimulus for community
Uh-huh.
The burden is on them, and they would have to give up schedule time. They'd have to be out of the house on a weeknight. They would have to be involved in volunteering at church, in a
Yeah.
community thing, coaching a thing, being a part of something beyond their own home.
Yeah.
And I think we've forgotten that.
Yeah. Yeah. I recently I have two two daughters that just recently graduated from their prospective colleges, and one of them, is in that stage of life of trying to figure out what it means to build community that isn't easy. And I can remember graduating. Now I got married out of graduating college, and but moved away from my college community, and I was like, I don't know how to do, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have roommates anymore. And I put a lot of that pressure of my need for connectedness on my marriage. Now, of course, Aaron, our relationship was really important. He was going to be a major source of connection for me, but he was never meant to fulfill that whole,
Right.
all of it. He was never
Yeah.
meant to be the whole source. And the pressure on that was not sustainable. And so we both, through counseling and getting help and other, wise voices, made a commitment to pursue relationships and friendships outside of our marriage. That, I have my friends, he has his friends, we have friends that we have together, and we support that. We, encourage that. We are intentional about being committed to making space in each other's lives for that. But that was a conversation that had to be had, a decision that had to be
Yeah.
made. It wasn't something that just intuitively happened to us.
It's really interesting, though. I'm glad we're having this conversation, though, today, because having now recorded 25 podcast episodes, it is fascinating to me how many times, even beyond what's on the board for Clifton Strengths, I remember talking to Dave Merritt, and I think in episode 2, about how he left his law firm to go run Unreal Clothing. And one of the key elements was I had people I had to go to talk to. I
Mm,
talked to Paul Sabert, a couple of Cybert, right? I
cyber,
always say it
yeah.
wrong. Cybert. Um, and how community ended up being the thing that transformed a little photographic hobby into 250,000 Instagram followers and published books, and how that ended up. I talked to someone again this morning of like the relationships and community, how much when it comes to navigating decision making, it requires doing that not in isolation. But I don't think we think of cultivating community as a navigation tool. I think we
Mm,
cultivate information gathering and options.
yeah,
So I have a plan for how can I figure out all the resumes, and how can I figure out whether or not I'm qualified and how to properly apply for that. Let's say you're
yeah,
looking for a job, or I'm making a big choice. But it's funny, if I talk to people and say, what's the linchpin moment that changed your life, and tell me how you navigated it, there'll be a moment that is bigger than their feeling of safety. And then there's the choosing, but it's almost always, and these are the people that I was in a relationship with
hmm,
that I pinged that.
yeah, yeah,
And thankfully they had that. But it's almost like in these moments where if you feel a season of transition coming, and you're going to navigate something where you've run off the map because maps are dead,
yeah,
um, I would say there's an element of gathering up your community even before you stepping in.
yeah,
And
for
we
sure.
get so late. I'll have people say, well, I can't seem to find a job. I'm like, how many people have you told you want a job?
Yeah,
I'm like, start by telling your community.
yeah,
And as Mr. Rogers would say, look for the helpers,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? And there's a whole element of that I think we don't think of cultivating community as a tool for navigation. I
yeah,
think we should.
yeah. I want one of the things that is a core value for me is I'm a believer that we all have blind spots. That's, there are parts of us that are unknown to ourselves, and we need other people's eyes. I need another brain to come online with my brain and help
Yeah.
me see what I can't see. And if I am too prideful or I feel like I am somebody that is supposed to know everything, then that's going to be a really hard thing for me. But I feel like, you know, it's not that I need approval of others in order to do something or make a decision, like ultimately the decision is mine, and I have to cultivate belief in myself to do something. It's, I can't just run forever on somebody else's belief in me.
Right.
Eventually I have to start, doing that. But I really am so grateful, and not everyone I meet gets to hold this space in my life. There are certain people that I have, invited into that space with me. And there's, qualities that I look for that, do we have shared values? Do we have a shared understanding? Are these
There's
people
some
that I can trust?
intentionality to it.
Yeah, like, are these people that are gonna not just tell me what I wanna hear, but tell me what they really see? Like, there's a vetting process, so to speak,
Yeah.
for that. So it's not just about accessibility, but it's, like, looking for really the quality of people, and then being humble to say, "There are things that I don't see, help me." Be somebody I give you permission to speak that into my life, and so that I can put that into the grid of how I'm evaluating what decision
Yeah.
gets to be made.
That's right. So good. This I'm instituting a new thing because I want people to hear people's responses based on 5 themes. So again, connectedness, communication, arranger, analytical, and harmony. But I'm starting to offer up to finish the podcast the 4 questions that Gallup asks people to share. We do this, we do this in our exercises with
Yep.
clients sometimes. So I'm going to give you them one by one. I'd love to hear your response. The first question is: you get the best of me when?
Yep, I just walked through this, right, before. Again,
Yeah,
I've done this exercise
yeah,
before.
we done it a
So,
lot.
the bullet points, you get the best of me when there are clear expectations, when I have, opportunity for relational connection, when I'm in a culture of generosity, collaboration, and appreciation, when there is an investment, in my growth and I have access to resources.
So good. You get the worst of me when?
You get the worst of me when there's a lack of clarity, when there is a culture of passive aggressive communication, um, when there's a lot of competition and isolation.
Okay. I'm going to jump over and then jump back. What do you need from others?
I need connection, communication, clarity, encouragement, belief, and opportunity.
And you can count on me to.
Show up, be authentic, address issues and bring needs I have, support to offer and to offer support, uh, a willingness to do small and big things.
Well, I experienced that. You're always bringing that to the table, so I appreciate it. It's fun. It's fun to listen, Des, to how like the need for clarity, like the communication analytical comes together, but it's
Yeah,
anchored around your care and love and connection with me
yeah,
as a person in your life, meeting anyone, the way you
for
connect
sure.
to others, but wanting to love clearly.
Yeah, yes, yeah,
Wanting to love clearly is what I hear as I put words to what I'm hearing in your discussion and how I experience you.
yeah.
If that resonates.
Yeah, it does. I think that I want to know that. I think if you were just a boss, like, a boss who just gave me things that you wanted me to do, that would not be fulfilling to me.
Right.
But I think there is a sense of love and trust and belief that I have in you, and I feel that from you as well. And that
Yeah.
is, and I think it doesn't mean that we don't have to share clear expectations with one
Right.
another,
Totally. No, it's
right?
still
That
required.
that
Yeah.
that is sometimes we think, well, if we're in a relationship that there's just
I
a
shouldn't have to say it. You should know
yeah,
me. We use it as a litmus test on others' value.
right.
Yeah.
And
No,
I don't
you
believe
always
in
have to express.
that.
Yeah. You always have to express. But Des, you're one of those rare people who can hold the weight of someone's story and yet sit in it and challenge them to move forward. So, and I see it every day as we work together. So thank you so much for being on here with me today.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
If something that in this conversation has resonated, I want to offer up, as always, a next step or two. One in particular, we call it Clarity Compass, as Destry and I are talking about clarity of communication or clarity of communication. The Clarity Compass is 5 questions to see if your life's on track and what to do if it's not. And you can grab it at the link in the description down below. Also, we are trying to reach more and more people. This is just something we do to help others feel more understood and start to understand how to assess and take action in their life. And so please share, like, review, all those things. It matters more than you can imagine. Thanks so much for being here again. This is Maps Are Dead. I'm Mike D. We'll see you next time.